Hey guys, Dan Malone here from MassLive.com along with Andrew Sear of the Massachusetts Daily Collegian. We are at Gillette Stadium where UMass just wrapped up a 17-13 loss at the hands of Akron. Their third loss to Akron in 4 years. Not a great series for them, and this wasn't a great game. We've seen a lot of awful games this year. I feel like I give this line at the beginning of every video. But this was another one. UMass offensively looked as disjointed as ever. Blake Fronapple completed far under 50% of his passes, threw a couple really bad picks. Could have had a couple more at that point. Play calling, I mean, maybe should have run the ball a few times more. And defensively, they got it done. I mean, they held the team to 14 points, and they got the ball back with 1:52 left, needing to drive 80 yards. And it ends in a bad interception to Dan Jonah, of all people.
Yeah, and Dan, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, this team had its shots. I mean, as poorly as that third quarter and up until the final drive they played, they had a chance to go down and win that game. And they started moving the ball downfield. They're doing some short passing routes, and they start driving, move the ball downfield a little bit more. And on the final play of the game, you see both Tajay Sharp and Rodney Mills double team. So Fronapple's forced to go to Dan Jonah on the outside, underthrows the route, like he said in his post-game press conference. And it's just across the board unacceptable performance, because you've seen so many times. At the beginning of the year, if you were to tell people that this defense was going to hold teams to 17 points, 20 points, whatever,
You'd take that every day.
Exactly. I think a lot of people think that in offense, with this caliber quarterback, with an NFL receiver in Tajay Sharp, and not to mention you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback coach with Mark Whipple, the fact that they can't generate any offense, especially after halftime adjustments, that's got to be a big concern for the UMass going forward.
Cue a whole bunch of fans saying, "What halftime adjustments?"
Yeah.
But I mean, it's no secret. The offense has regressed from last year. Mark Whipple was asked directly, what's the difference? And his first response was that opposing defenses have gotten better. Maybe that's true. That's certainly not going to sit well with fans who've gotten frustrated by a 1-7 season or 1-8 season now so far. I mean, it doesn't help that Gene Siffrin left, that Jalen Williams is out, that Mark and Michelle's been out lately, and now that they can kind of double team these guys, they're big players at will, and it leaves Dan Jonah in positions to have to make big plays. It leaves Shakir Naismith in position and Elgin Long. These are not who they were designing these plays for in the offseason, and it's really showed. And you mentioned the third quarter. I want to talk about that. They got shut out in the third quarter today. That's the 7th time that's happened in 9 games. 7th time they've been shut out in the third quarter. They've been outscored 112-21 in the third quarter. If you have any momentum whatsoever in the second, at the end of the second quarter, it's just out the window. And they're getting the doors blown off, and how can you win doing that consistently week in and week out?
You can't. And the thing is, you saw beginning of the year, Whipple always if they won the toss, they elected to receive. Changed it up a little bit today. They decided, we'll defer, maybe get the ball, start the second half with the ball, maybe gain some momentum. But like you said, they come out in the third quarter. They just they had momentum, gone whatsoever. It's a lot of problems across the board. And like you mentioned, Siffrin not having that target in Siffrin, especially. Just in the red area, you've seen so many interceptions. But now they haven't hit the deep ball at all this year.
They haven't even tried to throw it.
Exactly.
Every once in a while. But it used to be a staple of their offense. Part of it's execution. Part of it's play calling. Part of it is that, Blake Fronapple has to run for his life half the time, and they're not going to be able to set that up. But the problems that have kind of plagued this team are innumerable, and we've seen them come up week after week after week, from play calling gaffes, I would call them, to guys getting beat one-on-one. That's another thing Whipple talked about. And they're a 1-8 team. They are. Phil Parcells said you are what your record says you are. They thought they would be a bowl team, a MAC contender, and they're not. These are teams that they should be beating. Like you said, if you hold them to 14, you think that they'd score 40 on them, and it's just not the same. I think maybe that's probably hard for them to kind of get their minds around at this point, but there's 3 games left in this season. They need to win 2 of them if they even want to match what they did last year. You can't really call this anything other than a disaster, and we've seen it played out week after week, and it played out again this time.
That's it, Dan. You said it perfectly. It's been lack of execution on their part, and I think that you ask Whipple, what's the deal? He will tell you, we just didn't execute, and that's been the excuse from week 1 through week 9 or week 10, whatever we are now.
Even if I think he probably needs to take more of the blame, and we haven't heard it yet. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I'm not sure, but they got Eastern Michigan on the road next week. You'd think winnable game. That is the definition of a winnable game, Eastern Michigan. And I don't know. Is it a toss-up? I have no idea.
A loss against Eastern Michigan looks a lot worse than a win. A loss against Eastern Michigan.
That's a good way of pushing.
A loss against Eastern Michigan, I think, hurts more than a win helps you, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. It definitely. Well, we won't be out there for that one, but we'll catch you back at Gillette Stadium, not Gillette, at McGurk Stadium when they're back there for their home finale. Sierra, thanks very much,
No
and
problem, man.
we'll catch
Thank
you
you.
next time.